Welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I am Napasa and I'm happy to welcome you. But before we start off with today's session, I have this disclaimer, and that is by watching our videos, you understand that the information shared, including user comments, is not professional advice. Use at your own risk. Our intention is never to offend, it's just a casual exchange of ideas. And once again, friends, welcome to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. This is Daily Immigration Dose. I'm your host, Nipasa Pradhan, and I'm co hosting this with my co host, Sam. Hi, Sam. Thank you for joining us.
Hi Napasa, it's good to be back, and I'm really happy, for today's episode. As today, it's a very, very interesting topic that we are going to talk about. That is, how has
Absolutely.
immigration shaped America's history, and what lessons can we learn? So I think, yeah,
So
there's a
true.
huge discussion that we would like to have in today's episode, and I think we'll be seeing so many different perspective of our viewers too, those who will be commenting or those who want to join us in this session. So I think it will be great, and I'm looking forward to this session. And yeah, please go ahead.
Absolutely, Sam. And immigration is often referred to as a lifeblood of United States, a nation built by people who crossed oceans and borders in search of opportunity, freedom, and a better life, of course. So, from early settlers to the latest arrivals, immigrants have really profoundly influenced America's culture, economy, and also innovation. So, today we're going to discuss all of these bits and pieces, and I'll be really happy if folks out there can also join us. And to join us, you can not only comment, you can also join us by calling us on this number 425-436-6335, and dial this access code after that 988-888. And once you do that, just say hello, we will be able to hear you. So please feel free to join us in this discussion. And yes, today, as Sam has already mentioned, how has immigration shaped America's history and what lessons can we learn? That's the topic of discussion for today. And looking back, really for America's culture, economy, and innovation, the journey has not been without its challenges, of course,
Right.
marked by struggles for acceptance, also evolving policies and debates that continue to shape the national conservation. So today we will not just be looking back at the rich stories that make up America's immigrant history, especially, but we are also exploring the invaluable lessons that we can take away. We can take from the past for the future. So I am excited for today's discussion for sure. Sam, what have you got to tell us?
Yeah, I think the topic that we are going to talk about is how how important the immigration role has been in shaping the whole America. And I think United States is known as the nation of immigrants, but that doesn't that's a very small part of information that we all know. And today I think we are going to explore everything, that how did immigration shape the US from its early days to now. And we will also talk about like detailed information about the journey of how immigration has impacted the US, and we'll also learn the lessons that we can learn it from it today. So there is a lot to discuss, and we will shed light on each and every topic because there's a history behind it, and now what how we think that US is, how early it was, and how it got started, everything. So we will start from basics. But before that, Napasa, let's have some news updates so that we can understand what's happening around the world. So, here's the first news update, friends, that I would like to say about USCIS. So, USCIS has recently announced an update to its processing times for several visa categories, and processing times have been reduced for H-1B and L-1 visa applications, a welcome relief for many international workers. The agency aims to improve efficiency through technological advancements and process streamlining. Moving ahead with Canada, Canada's immigration system continues to face significant backlogs, leading to delays in work permits, resident residency applications, and study permits. Immigration Minister has recently addressed the issue and stating that the government is committed to resolving the delays and improving the overall processing times, which currently exceeds a year for many applicants. If we talk about Australia, And Australia is also tightening its immigration rules to better align with the country's labor market needs. New regulation will prioritize skilled workers in industries such as healthcare, engineering, and also construction too. The Australian government aims to address the ongoing labor shortages while ensuring that the immigration policies support the nation's economic recovery. And if we talk about UK, then the United Kingdom has officially introduced a points-based immigration system for workers from outside the European Union. And this new policy is designed to attract highly skilled workers, particularly in sectors like technology, healthcare, and engineering, while reducing reliance on low skilled immigration too. So the system gives points for qualifications, salaries, and English language proficiency as well, and trying their level best to streamline the visa process. So, moving ahead with another news update that will be given by Nipasa.
Thank you so much, Sam, for that update. And yes, I too have one. And the Department of Homeland Security has announced key updates to the International Entrepreneur Program, which is effective October 1st, 2024. And this program was established in 2017, which allows foreign entrepreneurs, to stay temporarily in the US to grow their startups, which must show the potential for job creation and economic benefits. And the changes align the program with inflation and current economic conditions as well. The investment threshold for initial parole increases to $311,071 from qualified investors, or about $124,429 from government grants. And for reparole, startups must ensure $622,142 in investments and create at least five jobs or achieve annual revenue of the same amount with 20% growth. So these updates reflect DHS's commitment to supporting innovative businesses that drive US jobs, US job creation, and economic growth. Definitely, this is a new thing. And I think what this news is probably saying is that the adjustment to the International Entrepreneur Program is designed to attract serious and growth oriented entrepreneurs who can drive this job creation and economic advancement in the United States. And it represents a strategic pivot towards ensuring that the program meets the needs of today's business environment and provides meaningful opportunities for international entrepreneurs. So that is a news update that I have.
All right. So I think that's a quick brushing up about what's happening around the world, and I think that's good. So now I think we should talk about our very first segment of today's topic. So, friends, I would like to begin with the basics. That is the early discovery of America. So, before we talk about immigration, we need to go back in time and understand that how the American continent was actually discovered. So, America, as we know, it was discovered by European during the Age of Exploration. And in 1492, it was said that Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer, landed in the Caribbean, believing that he had found a new route to Asia. But in reality, he had stumbled upon a new continent. So, although we often give a credit to Columbus with discovering America, but it's also important to remember that there were already some indigenous people who were living on that island for thousands of years before Columbus actually given that statement that it's America. So these Native American tribes had their own cultures, languages, and societies long before any Europeans set foot here. And over time, the European powers like Spain, France, England, and Netherlands began to establish their colonies in US. So yeah, this was the basic how America, I mean, about the land, how it got found out. And moving ahead, I would also like to talk about the first settlers. That is the when colonization begins. So in the early 1600s, what happened that European settlers began to establish the permanent colonies in North America. And one of the first successful English colonies was Jamestown, that was Virginia, and that founded in 1607. So that was a huge, long years back, right? So the
Mhm.
settlers, what they do, they came with hopes of finding gold and riches, but at 1607 they faced conditions like starvation and diseases as well. So, the most famous group of early settlers at that time were the Pilgrims, who arrived in 1620 on the Mayflower. So, they came to America for religious freedom and escaping persecution in England. So, they established Plymouth colony as well, and their story is closely associated with Thanksgiving also. So, there's a history also that why Thanksgiving is being celebrated. And Thanksgiving has just passed, but now most of the people, they don't know that why do they celebrate. So there's a good connection, of pilgrims to Thanksgiving that I would like to share. So Thanksgiving as we know it today, that stems from that first feast in 1621. So the pilgrims and Native Americans came together to celebrate the success of the harvest and give thanks for their survival. So over time, this event became a symbol of cooperation and gratitude, and it eventually evolved into the national holiday of Thanksgiving, and that's why people celebrate it every year in the United States. In short, the pilgrims were suffering during their first winter in America highlights the challenges, of early colonization, and their connection with the Native Americans during the first Thanksgiving serves as a reminder that yes, there were some kind of friendliness, there was some kind of cooperation and mutual aid during that difficult time. So this was a bit history from my end, and also Napas, I would like to ask from you, what would you like to add on this topic?
Thank you so much, Sam. So sorry, I'm like still in my
Yeah.
attorney zone. But yes, I mean, thank you for that highlight on the history. And to add on more to that, the US has been a key destination for immigrants, and very rightly put by Sam as well. And immigrants have been shaping its demographic, cultural, and economic landscape for since times immemorial. And early immigration definitely began with the European settlers in 17th century, including English Puritans, Dutch, and the Spanish colonists. And the transatlantic slave trade also forcibly brought Africans to the America. And in the 19th century, waves of European immigrants sought opportunities and escaped from hardship, including Irish fleeing the potato famine and Germans escaping political unrest. And in late 1800s saw significant Chinese and Japanese immigration as well. Although exclusionary policies like Chinese Exclusion Act and Gentlemen's Agreement restricted these groups, you know um, they came in. And the early 20th century introduced quotas favoring Western Europeans, while limiting Southern and Eastern Europeans, Asians, and others as well. So immigration showed during the Great Depression and World War II, but resumed after 1965 with reforms eliminating racial quotas, allowing family-based and employment-based immigration. And in recent decades, immigration has diversified a lot, and with large numbers arriving from Latin America, Asia, and Africa as well. Immigration remains central to US society, contributing to the economic growth while also fueling debates over policy, border security, and the balance between welcoming newcomers and even addressing domestic challenges. And these are topics that we really discuss in depth, in our channel. I'm sure folks out there keep on seeing all these, especially border security, with the new administration coming up as well. So there has been a lot, and I think if you look at the history of America, it's just incomplete without immigrants from all across the globe.
Absolutely. And that's what we are discussing, right?
Yes.
All right. So I
So
think, yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, so Sam, you covered until the sixth. I mean, you were covering till the 1800s, is it?
Yeah.
All right.
1600s, when the Europeans they came and they
The
tried to
colonization
settle.
happened.
Yeah, exactly. So that
All
was
right.
basically the first settlers, that came and that happened in the early 1600s. So most of our viewers they don't know about it. So that's why it's important to put this up.
I'm sure, I'm sure. Like when you talk about history, there's so much it holds that probably it's not going to be possible for each one to remember the timelines so clearly. And it's always good to brush up all these, and that's what we're here for today. And I'm so glad Namrata has also joined us, on YouTube.
Mhm.
Namrata is asking, how do you think America's current immigration system would look to someone who came here during the Ellis Island era? Would it seem more welcoming or restrictive? Do you have anything to say to this, Sam?
I think we should have this discussion later on because in our show also we are going to cover this topic. So I think Namrata, as we move ahead and we are trying to cover each and every year, each and every period. So soon we'll be coming to this, and stay tuned with us. And for sure, keep on commenting and posting. We are definitely going to take your comments. And meanwhile, I would also like to talk about the first wave of immigration. So yeah, that happened between 1600s and 1700s. So what happened in the 1600s and 1700s, that more people from Europe, they began to come to America, and most of these immigrants, they came from England, but many others came from different countries like Germany, Netherlands, and Ireland as well. So they had different reasons for making that journey, and they had some on the other, their reasons or their consequences why they came to America. But one of the main reason that why people came was for better opportunities, because many were looking for land to farm, for better jobs, and also a new life that was away from hardships in their home countries. So some were also escaping wars, poverty, or religious persecution. So, a large group of early immigrants were endangered servants, and these were the people, who couldn't afford to pay for their passage to America. So, they made an agreement to work for someone for a number of years in exchange for their journey to the New World. And after their time as servants, they were given their freedom and sometimes land to start a new life. And there was also slavery in early America that I would like to highlight. So, not all immigration to America was voluntary. A dark
Mhm.
chapter was also that in America's early history involved slavery too. So while most European settlers, came by choice, and there were millions of people, millions of Africans were taken against their will and forced to come to America as slaves also. So this was also a history that we should know about it. It's not that all the immigrants we are seeing, I mean, we are reading about it is not voluntarily. Some of the, in fact, millions of Africans, they were taken against their will and forced to come to America as slaves. So that was the transatlantic slave trade that began in early 1600s and that lasted for 200 years. So that was a pretty long time, right? And during this time, enslaved Africans were forced to onto ships and taken to the Americas to work on different sectors like plantations, particularly in southern colonies. And these slaves worked on crops like tobacco, cotton, sugar, basically the most highly profitable for the economy. So those slaves used to work on these. And it's also estimated that about 12 million Africans were taken to Americans as part of the transatlantic slave trade. And of those, around 500,000 were brought to what is now the United States. So we can see that out of 12 million Africans were taken to America, but out of those, only 500,000 people were there, and they stayed there. That is known as United States now. So I think these enslaved Africans, played a significant role in building the economy of early America. And yeah, and they tried their best for plantation, for farming, and that was the main industry at that time. So, Americans, they needed someone to work on plantation and farming sector. So that is why they chose them. And unfortunately, they keep them as a slave, but that is something that Africans also made a huge contribution in building the US economy. So yeah, that was I would say a sneak peek to a history, not still a very detailed one because it's not possible for us to cover that, but that's a brief about it.
That was good, Sam. And I think now I would touch on the 1800s, that'll make it easier for our timeline to flow. So, a time when immigration to America was become booming and really shaping the country in profound ways. I think we should also walk through this fascinating period together. So,
Yeah.
first from 1820 to 1860, we saw the first big wave of immigration. Millions of Irish people, they fled the Great Famine, while Germans escaped political turmoil back home, and the Scandinavian settlers, they came searching for farmland.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, and there was widespread hostility, especially towards Irish Catholics, fueled by fear and prejudice. Then from the 1848 to 1855, the California gold rush drew people from all over the world, Chinese immigrants in particular, flocked to the West Coast, working in mines and as laborers. And sadly, they faced a lot of discrimination then. And this period set the stage for exclusionary policies that targeted them later on. As we touched on it a little bit earlier. So, this is when it happened, 1848 to 1855. And by the 1860s, Chinese laborers, they played a critical role in building the transcontinental railroad, which was essential for, of course, connecting the country and driving economic growth. However, they worked in grueling conditions for low pay, and they were met with societal hostility despite their immense contributions. I feel like that was very unfair. But fast forward to the 1880 to 1920s, a new era of immigration brought millions of Southern and Eastern Europeans, Italians, Jews, Poles, seeking factory jobs and opportunities in American cities. They brought incredible cultural richness, but also, they faced difficulties in fitting into the broader society, sorry. So, unfortunately, of course, not all policies were becoming um, so welcoming at that time. And then in 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act became the first significant restriction on immigration, driven by fears of job competition and also anti Asian sentiment. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, in 1892, Ellis Island, coming back to Namrata's question, it opened its doors, and this immigration station processed millions of newcomers and became a symbol of hope and opportunity for so many people dreaming of a better life in America. So yes, the 1800s, were a time of immense growth and change also at the same time, filled with hope, of course, and struggle, and a lot of lessons learned during that time, and those lessons still resonate today. So it's really incredible to see how much immigrants have shaped this country during that century as well.
Right, right. And I think because of immigrants only, people get to know that how much US has improved throughout this year. So I think without immigrants, it wasn't possible, for US to become the largest economy. So that's also a very important point that we all should remember. And Nepasa, you already covered a lot, but there are some more information that I would also like to share about 1800s. That is so basically that was the time of a very rapid growth and change in America. So the industrial revolution was also transforming the economy with new factories were coming, railroads were building, then also cities like springing up. So America needed workers at that time to fuel this expansion, and immigrants came in large number to fill these jobs, because at that time immigrants, they were trying to get more jobs and jobs for their salaries, for their living. And America was the one who was on the progress situation at that time. So between 1820 and 1870, it is estimated that about 7.5 million immigrants arrived in the US, and most of them came from Ireland, Germany, that you already mentioned. And the Irish came in large numbers during the Great Famine of the 1840s, when a potato blight caused a mass starvation in Ireland. But there's also interesting fact that between 1845 and 1852, around 1 million Irish people died from starvation, and another million fled to America. So by 1850, over half of the New York City's population was made up of Irish immigrants at that time. So yeah, this was the thing, that happened during 1800s. And there's also, by the late of 1800s, if we talk about that, then America had also become known as the land of opportunity by 1800. Because at that time, millions of immigrants from all over the world, they were coming to pursue the American dream. So I think by 1800 it was a bit appraisal time for America, because there was industrial revolution also that we could see, and that was kind of a second wave of immigration. Because after 1800, only those immigrants were trying to come to America who were seeking for the opportunity, because till that time it was considered as the land of opportunity. So they arrived at ports like Ellis Island in New York, what Namrata also mentioned, so where they processed before entering the country. So at that time, the Ellis Island wasn't that much developed, but still there were immigrants who processed, who came before the country. I mean, before that area was built up properly. And during this time, many immigrants came from southern and eastern Europe too, places like Italy, Poland, and Russia. And many were Jewish, who were actually fleeing persecution, or Italians, escaping from poverty. So the immigrants of this era, they helped build America's cities. They also helped in working the factories, construction, railroads, and establishing a small businesses too at that time. So they all faced some kind of discrimination also at that time, and there were also anti-immigrant sentiment that was common at that time. So laws that were passed to limit immigration from certain countries, especially China and Japan, and even the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 was also implemented. So this was one of the major laws, that was restricting immigration. So I think, Nipasa, this was a kind of a first. I would say a first phase that we could see an anti immigration kind of thing that happened in the history of America, right? Because in Chinese Exclusion Act also, it was banned that Chinese immigrants were banned, from entering the country. And it was a response to fears that Chinese laborers were taking jobs from Americans. So I think, Napasa, now also we can see that there's an anti-immigration wave going on around the world, and most of the people from Americans only, they are becoming anti-immigrant. They are saying that immigrants are taking away their jobs, or their culture is harm, or so many things, But this is the thing, when it started, when America was just on the first phase of its development, then also there were some kind of anti-immigration activities that were going on. So, Napasa, what do you think that why this anti-immigration feeling is developing now, because everything is developed? But what about the history? I mean, there were very less people. The immigrants, they just came for the opportunity. So everything was so positive, positive. But why do you think that why people become anti-immigrant? What's the reason behind it?
Because they had the fear that they will take away the jobs that existed, and there may not be enough for them, the Americans.
But it's also like, if there are no immigrants, then I think there won't be any job, because it not only the land of opportunity, but it's like immigrants made that land of opportunity, right? They tried their level best. They worked hard so much. They worked on factories. They constructed railroads. I think there's a huge contribution from immigrant side to make America this great. And yeah, I'm not able to understand, why people are becoming so anti-immigrant, and what's the point of doing that, because immigrants are contributing a lot in US economy. And yeah, anything that you would like to add on this, because I still have this doubt.
I mean, that's that only. There was that fear, and there was immense growth. There was a lot of change, a lot of people coming in, and a lot of new faces. Also, I mean, these immigrants, they had this hope, of because hope of being accepted, but they were also getting discriminated. They were struggling in so many ways. They were working so hard, but being paid so less, and basically they were almost like unwelcome. They were like you're saying, they were
Yeah.
anti immigrant, right?
Hmm.
And even today in so many cases it's still like that, and you keep hearing even our um, next president elect Trump is also anti-immigrant, and especially with regard to illegal immigrants, I think. And it it still has its ripples today, like those very things that were happening in the 1800s, the same things are still happening now, I think. And talking about then, why were they feeling, I'm sure like they had that fear of losing. They feel like, the available jobs are for them, right? But if there are these people taking away those jobs, obviously they'll be fearful. They were not feeling so secure about so many people coming in, filling these positions.
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct. But we can also see that now it's not pretty much very rational. You can't be one side. It's properly, you can be on the grayish side, right? Because if there is something right, there is something wrong. Then also we can see that how we can't differentiate exactly that immigrants are doing great and the natives are doing bad. It's like overall, 50-50%. Natives have also contributed a lot, but immigrants too have contributed a lot. So I think it's the great side that we are working on this. And yeah, I think moving ahead, I would also like to talk about the immigration in the 20th century. So, at that time, what happened? There was some kind of policies that were changing. So, the
Yeah.
early 20th century, we saw even more immigrants, those were arriving from around the world. But it was also a time, when immigration laws became stricter. So this is something I would say very great or eye-opening that in the early 20th century only, the time which was very close to America's new era. From that time only the immigration laws became stricter. And the Immigration Act of 1924 set quotas, limiting the number of people who could come from each country, particularly targeting immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe. And in fact, they also tried to ban most Asian immigrations as well. So, however, immigrants continue to play a crucial role in shaping the country that we all know, and they also worked in factories during World War One and World War Two, and helped in developing new technologies and contributed to the American economy, I would say, in a countless way. So, these were some of the contributions that were made by immigrants. And if we also talk about, post World War II immigration, then after World War II, when everything got disrupted and there were very less opportunities or everything was changed, even the immigration laws changed again. So the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act tried to abolish the quota system. And in 1965, what happened that they tried to open doors to immigrants from Asia, Latin America, and Africa too. And this shifted the demographic makeup of the US and laid a foundation for the diverse country that we are seeing today how it is. So I think years after years it's keep on changing. It's keeps on, I would say, trying to make it more better. And today, how we are seeing, I think it's about 1 in 4 Americans, is an immigrant or the child of immigrants. So every house or every 4 in 1 person, we can see that they are immigrants. It's not possible without immigrants. The America is today what it is. So there's a huge history about what happened, especially in 20th century and before that also, how the policies got changed. And yes, there are so many things. And anything, Napasa, that you would like to ask or would like to move ahead and share with our viewers?
No, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the 20th century, and we are still continuing exploring the rich, though sometimes challenging, history of immigration in America. So, starting in the 1910s, we saw the significant migration of Mexicans to the US, right? Largely driven by the upheaval of the Mexican Revolution. And many came seeking jobs in agriculture, railroad construction, and even marking the beginning of a long and ongoing history of labor migration from Mexico.
Mhm.
So that was there, and their hard work really contributed greatly to American history, even the American economy, even as their presence often they sparked debates about labor and immigration, right? Even today it does. And then came the Immigration Act of 1917. I think that's what you were talking about, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, this law introduced the literacy test for immigrants and barred immigration from the Asian Pacific region, right? And these restrictions were really fueled by rising nativist attitudes. People feared cultural changes and economic competition. And it was really clear a sign, of how fear often shaped immigration policy then and even today. Even today, if you see, these policy changes happen, especially because of fear. And yes, the 1921 and the 1924 Quota Acts, they also brought even more restrictions. These laws set strict national origin quotas favoring immigrants from northern and western Europe, while severely limiting those from southern and eastern Europe and even Asia.
Mhm.
And this was a turning point, that solidified racial preferences in US immigration policy and excluded entire groups from seeking the American dream. And then, of course, in the 1930s, the Great Depression hit. Yes, the widespread economic hardship, it declined sharply. Mexican Americans, in particular, they faced a harsh reality. Many were targeted for deportation under repar repatriation programs, and even though many were U.S. citizens, it was like a dark chapter that time, and it still reminds us of the dangers of scapegoating during times of economic struggle, I guess. And um, yes, that was at the beginning of the 20th century.
But yeah, Napasa, one thing can you see that if we look the other countries, India, we talk especially about India, then India was a land, where the people they were existing. It's nothing that they came along or they immigrated. It was that the already those indigenous people they were there, okay, and then it grew. But America, it has even those. The Native Americans, they themselves are immigrants because earlier also they came from Poland or the Europe country, the Germany, Berlin or UK. So there were so many countries that they came from, and now we could see that is it. Do you think that it's possible? People from different countries they are coming together in one country, and do you think it's possible to live happily or to live peacefully because different countries having different ideologies, different cultures, and different beliefs. So now also we can see that America is a Christian state and it follows and it has a similar, I would say, everything. But how difficult it is, to have different people from different countries and then they are settling up in one thing. So, what do you want to say on this? That is it okay or is it possible that people from different ideologies they are coming in and settling in one place? And do you think they can live peacefully for this?
As long as fear prevails, I don't think everybody is going to feel secure. So if there is no fear about anything, whether it is losing a job or being attacked or feeling discriminated, any sort of differentiation, if that doesn't exist, of course there could be peace anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, right. But unfortunately, it was discrimination also used to happen at that time also there were differentiation there were discrimination a lot. So we can also see that in American history that what happened. And moving ahead, I would also like to say that if we talk about today, then I think today the US is home to over 44 million immigrants, right? And immigrants continue to play a huge role in the country, and especially in industries like technology, healthcare, and education. And there are many well-known companies like Google, Tesla, and Amazon. Those were founded by immigrants or the children of immigrants, we can say that. But immigration is still a very big topic in politics too, and some people believe that we need to limit immigration, to protect jobs, while others believe that immigrants is actually they are helping in making America stronger and more innovative. So, Napasa, what do you think? That do you also believe that immigration is, some people believe that they need to limit the immigration to protect jobs, or are you in favor that some people believe that immigrants are making America stronger and more innovative?
Of course, I would go with the second option. They're making America more innovative. And, there are immigrants who are, who also come in as investors, who are creating jobs, who are creating jobs not just for themselves, but also for so many Americans out there. So, of course, there is innovation and there's a lot happening. And it's that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Napasa, now we should also talk about, as our second part of today's topic is the lessons from America's immigration history that we would like to talk. So I think let's have a discussion on this also, so that, what can we learn from this rich and complex history of immigration. So, yeah, friends, I think one major lesson is that immigrants have always played a vital role in building and shaping the United States, and they have contributed to its economy, culture, and society, in countless ways. So, from building railroads in the 1800s to founding tech companies in the 21st century, immigrants have been essential to America's growth and success. But history also shows us that immigration has always been some kind of a very important and a very crucial issue also. Some people support it and some people are against it, and each wave of immigrants, they face some kind of challenges, whether it was discrimination or whether it was some kind of exclusionary laws or economic hardship. But the great thing is that despite these obstacles, immigrants have preserved, and contributed to make America a stronger and more diverse nation. So, yeah, I think as we look to the future, we can also take the lessons, from the past to ensure that America remains a place where people from all over the world can come to pursue their dreams. And yeah, and I think Nabasa, anything from your side?
I think I would just like to say what has been the most transformative impact of immigration on the United States. Immigration has been transformative because it's at the core of what makes America diverse as well, right? And innovative, like we said earlier. Immigrants brought with them skills, ideas, and also cultural practices that enriched the country in countless ways. For example, if we look back at the Industrial Revolution, right?
Yeah.
It was fueled by immigrant labor, of course, or whether it was building railroads or working in factories. And today, immigrants are driving technological advancements even in Silicon Valley and reshaping industries like healthcare and education as well. So beyond economics, the cultural diversity has brought by immigrants has influenced music also, cuisine also, art, and even national holidays. So yes, immigration reminds us that America's strength lies in its ability to embrace people from all walks of life, creating a vibrant and a multidimensional society.
Absolutely. And I think, Napasa, that's our deep dive into the history of immigration in America. So, friends, we have seen today that how immigration has shaped this nation and, from its earliest days to the present, and learned that immigrants have always been a vital part of the American story as well. So, as we continue to navigate the modern immigration challenges, it's very important to remember the contributions of those who came before us and also the role that they played in building the US, right? So, I think, yeah, and I think that's all from our end, right? And it's almost, we have covered a good amount of topic today's session. So, I think it's time to wrap up, right?
Yes, Sam, I think it would be good. And thank you so much, folks out there, Namrata, Rajendra, for joining us. And yes, I think we've covered both your questions also as we spoke about uh, it in today's topic.
Yeah.
Was really good. It was a little different, and it was like brushing back into America's history. So it was good. Thank you so much, Sam. I'm looking forward for tomorrow already for another session on daily immigration dose, 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Me too, me too. Thank you so much, Nepalsan. Thank you so much, folks out there. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. We'll be coming again tomorrow with another very exciting episode on daily immigration dose. So stay tuned and thank you so much.